We got a Clippers Warriors crossover today, and today's Locked On Dubs / Locked On Clippers. We're talking about the Paul George saga. How close was he to playing for the Golden State Warriors? Could they be potential trade partners this year? Warriors have been looking for a big fish. That is no secret. Kawhi Leonard, he's a pretty big fish in the pond, I'd say. And who's going to be better, Clippers or Warriors? We're talking about it on today's show.
You are Locked On NBA Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is the good word, everyone? Thanks for making Locked On your first listen of every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Clippers with Darian, Viziri. Locked On Warriors with Charlie Walter. We are always brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, we're giving Warriors perspective. We're giving Clippers perspective on what went down with the Paul George situation, why the Golden State Warriors did not pull the trigger, and what the Clippers may have been asking for in return from Golden State. Could they link up again at some point this year and be potential trade partners? The Warriors are going to be testing the market. They have the assets engaged, the dry powder to go. Will they look LA's way, and would LA be willing to make a deal? And who's going to be better, Clippers or Warriors? Clippers were better last year. Warriors probably projected to be slightly better this year. Depends on who you ask. But let's start off with the Paul George saga, because Paul George was almost a Golden State Warrior this summer. Per him. That was a real thing, he said. It was close to being done. From what I was told on the situation, they were expressing how much they wanted me there, how it would have fit in perfectly with Draymond, Steph, Pajemski, Wiggins. They didn't know the package that they were going to trade for me. But what I did know is that it was a chance to stay on the West Coast. It was a win-win. Ultimately, the deal didn't go through. Clippers didn't want a certain trade that the Warriors were going to give. It didn't happen, but it was close, and it would have been dope. I was looking forward to it if it did happen. Darian, what was that saga like, the short saga, after, it all became official? What was it like between, the Clippers and the Warriors from your point of view?
It felt as though some Clipper fans were rooting for that possibility over him walking to Philly, just because if Paul George did end up leaving, we would get something in return. And from what I've understood, the talks ended because the Warriors weren't willing to give up Jonathan Kuminga. So Moses Moody, Andrew Wiggins, rest in peace to his father. He's been going through a lot the last couple of seasons, and there's been, uncertainty about his status in terms of availability. I think now that sadly his father has passed away, I think he'll be back to playing regularly, barring injury. But I think his contract is pretty big, and I don't think the Clippers wanted to take that on unless they were getting somebody like a Jonathan Kuminga that they could say maybe one day he could be a star caliber player in this league. So I think that's what happened. As far as the Clippers fans, had we not, or the deal that was being presented, no Jonathan Kuminga, I don't think Clipper fans wanted that. I think they stood by the organization and staying pat. And obviously we did end up letting Paul George walk in the end. But there were certain things that wouldn't have been possible had the Clippers maxed out Paul George, like getting other pieces to help this season, like a Nico Batum, Derek Jones Jr., and of course, re-signing Ivica Zubac and Terrence Mann to very solid team-friendly deals. And I know, for those that don't know, Terrence Mann has been re-signed by the Clippers as of about 2 hours before we started recording this. So there will be a whole episode for Locked On Clippers coming out this weekend about that. But to be able to keep 2 fan favorites and then add some more pieces. Look, the Clippers, I'm not saying they're going to get better this year, but it could have been a lot worse, and we have more flexibility long-term, because I think that's what it really is all about, is long-term. The Kawhi Leonard, James Harden era. Well, I guess the Kawhi, James Harden era is just beginning in terms of them two being the stars, but the Kawhi Leonard era, it's hard to believe the Clippers are going to get back to title contention with his health. So, that's the PG saga from my perspective. I kind of want to ask you, though, how did you feel about the whole thing?
I wonder if the Clippers, kind of the position they're in right now, reminds you at all of the position that the Thunder were in years ago when they had Paul George and they had Russell Westbrook, and they were retooling for the future while trying to, win now. I don't know how many parallels there are, but I just thought of that one. But in terms of the whole trade, the question that I want you to answer here with Mike Dunleavy, he was asked by the media about Lauri Markkanen and about Paul George and why they didn't pull the trigger on those. And his quote was, "There's no point in going all in just to be slightly above average. As a franchise, we're probably as impatient as possible right now, given our time constraints, but there's a fine line between impatience and recklessness," he said. Do you think that's accurate? That I know Paul George is older. I know that he's a, tweaked hip away from never being the same player, and giving up Kuminga and a deal surrounding Kuminga is a lot, but there's no point in going all in just to be slightly above average. What do you think of that quote?
I don't think that the Warriors would be slightly above average with Paul George. I think they'd be a good team. I think it'd be an improved team. But Clipper fans have heard me say it, and I think a lot of people know that if Paul George is your second option, you're probably not going to win a championship. And yes, that is an indictment on Paul George himself. I mean, when people see on the surface with him is his numbers and his incredible highlights and what he does when he's great. But what you don't see is extremely wavering confidence and aggression for a player that's very established in the league, that's getting paid a lot of money, and he does not generate many easy baskets. Now, as far as what his fit would have been like with the Warriors, I think it would have been really good because Paul George is the type of guy you can plug into different places, and he can work without the ball in terms of if you can, run pin downs for him and have him run off screens and work quickly off the catch. And that's a lot of what the Warriors like to do. He's not the best playmaker with a ball in his hands in the world. While he will get his 5 assists, if you give him that leeway to get 5 assists, he will make sure he'll get those 3 turnovers, and some will be extremely costly. However, this Warriors team needs a second guy they can go to, that they can create their own shot. Lost Klay Thompson. Andrew Wiggins obviously was kind of that second guy in the 2022 title, but not necessarily all creation. You had Jordan Poole, who was doing a lot of that as well, but I just think Andrew Wiggins was the second best player in that run. Will he ever reach those heights again? I'm not sure. Draymond is declining. Steph, as great as he is, also is declining, getting gassed quicker these days, it seems. He did not have, he was the clutch player this season, so I'll give him that. But I have watched a good amount of the Warriors the last couple of seasons, and he's not, to me, the same defender that he was in 2022. And I saw that right away in the beginning of the 2023 season when the Warriors went on that East Coast road trip and were losing games to really bad teams like Detroit and Charlotte, from my memory. I think the Warriors are aging.
They couldn't win a game on the road, man.
Right, in 2023. And
yeah,
I know it's gone a little better. They got a little better last season, but at the end of the day, they were still a 10th seed. So this Warriors team needs some revival. I would have made the swing for Markkanen more so than Paul, because a mobile big that you can run off screens and hasn't necessarily hit his ceiling, playing with the Steph Curry and a Draymond Green, I think that's a lot better than just a slightly above average team, quite frankly. That was the guy for me, was Lauri Markkanen. If you got Paul George, you're flirting with a top 4 seed, but I will tell you, you will not have won the championship. Maybe that's me being, I wouldn't call myself a Paul George hater at all, but very adamant about who he is as a basketball player. And it still puts a lot on Steph Curry. And do you still have the faith in Steph Curry to lead a team to a championship at his age? Because he's still spectacular, but that is an amazing level that he had to reach in 2022. Can he reach that again?
It's going to be tough. I will say this, though. If he's the number 2 on a team, if somehow the Warriors make that possible to where he can be a number 2 on a team, then absolutely,
for sure,
they could win a championship. Could Kawhi Leonard be that number 1 or that 1A, 1B type thing? Would that ever be a trade partnership that is in the future, that is in the cards, something that the Clippers would even explore? Warriors have the assets to make it happen if they wanted to. They're going to be talking trades, or at least looking at trades all season, assuming that this team is not championship caliber, which is, the expectation among most fans that have eyeballs, right? So could they be trade partners? That's coming up.
I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Charlie, what's your football team?
The 0-3 Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, this weekend, the Cincinnati Bengals are at Carolina, and they're -4.5. How you feeling about that?
Andy Dalton revenge game. I say lay the points, -4.5. That's a favorable line since
There
he's
we go.
due.
I've been saying for the Rams, my Rams going into Chicago, coming off a win over the Niners. They're +3. Honestly, I'm going with the Rams in that one. So where you go for all this, and it's not just football, you can bet on any sport. We have NBA stuff, MLB playoffs coming up. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com.
All right, Darian, back to the conversation. Trade partners, Warriors and Clippers. I've now asked a few teams this offseason. Blazers, they have some smaller moves. I asked if the Warriors could get involved. They said, I don't. I asked the Suns about Kevin Durant. They said, you never know. Not until the crow squeals or cocks or whatever crows do. But in terms of the Warriors and the Clippers, Warriors have the pieces to, I think, make the Clippers listen, to sit down at the table and at least explore. Is there any avenue to get it done? And would the Clippers ever make that trade in your mind?
Trading Kawhi Leonard?
Yeah.
Yes, I think there is an avenue where it could be done. However, it's a really weird one with Kawhi, right? Because when he's healthy, he's not the type of guy that you trade, because when he is healthy, there aren't 10 better players in the NBA. And I can tell you that now. I mean, ideally, yes, if you had a healthy Kawhi Leonard next to this Steph Curry.
Let me tell you this, Darian. Let me tell you this. As a Clippers guy, and to all of Clippers Nation listening to this, that trade that was proposed by Utah that we heard, at least through the rumor mill, which was Moody, it was Kuminga, it was Pajemski, and it was 2 firsts. You wouldn't entertain that trade offer if the Clippers were hovering around decent?
No, I would take it. I would 2 first rounders, Pods, and Kuminga. I would do it. But see,
don't forget Moody too. You get him
and Moody. Yeah. I would definitely do that. The thing is, with Kawhi, it's like, how often do you get a Steph or a Kawhi who have both proven that they can win the championship as a number 1 option? You don't get those guys. And in Clipper land, we haven't been, to be honest, even in Warriors land, you haven't been fortunate to have those kind of guys in your franchise history. I mean, in Warriors history, it's like who? I'm going with, Wilt, Rick Barry, Steph. Like, those guys just don't come around often. So the Clippers organization is holding out that if Kawhi Leonard can be healthy just one time again, that we've got a chance to do something special. How much do I believe he can be healthy for a playoff run? I don't anymore. I think his health is just, that degenerative right knee is so far gone. It just doesn't feel feasible that he can do it. However, he played 68 games last season. So it was like such a weird thing. But then he was worn down. Here's the thing. If Kawhi Leonard's healthy, I don't see the Clippers not being very good. I think we will hover around, 6 to 9, I would think, at worst, if Kawhi and James Harden are healthy. I think if Kawhi Leonard and James Harden are healthy, with the defensive pieces that the Clippers have put around them this offseason, I think they can be a really decent team. If James Harden gets hurt somehow and Kawhi is kind of playing on his own, then yes. You know what, Charlie? I think the only way that would even be entertained is if Kawhi himself requests a trade.
Which happens a lot, right?
Which does, but here's the thing about the Clippers with Kawhi. The Clippers have adhered to every single one of his demands. And he's at home. This is the first place he's chosen to be. He didn't choose to be a Spur, and he didn't choose to be a Raptor. He chose to be here with the Clippers, which is a lot of why, Kawhi, I wouldn't say he means a lot to Clipper fans. I think right now it's a very split kind of feeling on his tenure as a Clipper. But I'll say this, when he first came, we were all so appreciative that a player of his caliber would actually choose to come to the Clippers, because that's just not a thing that's happened in NBA history. So that's, for me, what would be the case is if Kawhi's like, you know what, even if I do my best, this team is a 46-win team, 45-win team. Let me go somewhere else. And quite frankly, Golden State would be a place that I think he'd be very open to going, because it's still in California. And Steph Curry, Draymond being part of that culture, I think that would entice him for sure. But I don't have the confidence that Kawhi would be. And here's the other thing, right? If the Clippers are actually bad, it's going to be because one of them are injured. Most likely most likely Kawhi himself. And why would a team want to trade for Kawhi when he's hurt? So that's the thing.
And the only way that this trade could ever happen would be Andrew Wiggins having a new home, Draymond Green having a new home. Like, there's no way that the Warriors could take him on and take on that contract with Steph, with Draymond, with Wiggins. I mean, you're talking 26 million, 30 million, 50 million. I mean, that's, you add on Kawhi to the paybook. Can't happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, right? With this, with the new CBA and all this stuff, you don't want to go over the second apron, and there's so many financial implications that so many people don't even know all the details of. I feel like I don't even know all the details about it, and I try to read up on the CBA as much as I can. But yeah, it really does not feel like Kawhi Leonard will be moved, because the only reason he'd be moved is if he's injured and the Clippers are just fed up. And at that point, who's taking the flyer on Kawhi? Yeah. There's some fans, and I'm not opposed to it either, is like, wait till Kawhi goes on an inevitable great stretch and sell high. I just don't think the Clippers would do that, because the upside of a healthy Kawhi Leonard is like, you never want to be the team, and the Clippers especially don't want to be this team that trades Kawhi and then he stays healthy for another franchise. And we're like, oh my God, what have we done? That would be the biggest disaster of them all. And I know they're extremely frightened of that. So if Kawhi is healthy, like, at the end of the day, James Harden has his playoff struggles, as Warriors fans know as well as anyone. But has James Harden really ever played with a proven champion like Kawhi Leonard? Because when he played with Kevin Durant, it was after Golden State, but they never really got to finish that postseason together in 2021.
No, and don't forget, they were a shot away from, taking down the Bucks and potentially being like, that was still a damn good team. And Harden was limping off the floor every game. Kawhi was missing games. Like, that three-headed monster that Brooklyn had really never had a chance to put it all together. They would have won a championship, right?
Well, you see, if we're talking 2021 in Clipperland, we obviously liked our chances had Kawhi not gotten hurt. If I'm being objective, the Nets did look like they had more firepower, but when that 2021 run was very special.
The narrative has changed on Harden quickly. Let's just put it that way. The narrative has changed since his days in Brooklyn, for sure.
And are you saying it for the better or for the worse? For the worse, right?
It's just the narrative. He has a chance to go out there and prove it, but I think the noise surrounding him is kind of the same, regression in terms of how fans view him as a Westbrook or as a Carmelo or as a player that hit mid-30s and started declining a little bit, I think.
Yeah. He's declined, but I will remind people that, and I'm not even the biggest James Harden fan. I did not want him on the Clippers at all, because I just don't believe that he's going to win a championship, because I think he's had plenty of chances to perform in the playoffs. And I think once he gets to that second round and the level increases, it's hard for him to get clean looks right now. You know what I'm saying? And even when you guys played him in the 2018 and 2019 playoffs, late in games, the Warriors would live with that contested step back three, because at the end of the day, he's been tired from doing all that dribbling. I remember Draymond Green and all that playmaking. I remember Draymond Green literally said it on Inside the NBA, and I was like, I knew you guys always kind of played for that. So my thing is this, though, what I want to remind people, just playing devil's advocate for James, is that this past postseason, he had one of his better postseasons in a little bit. Like, he averaged 21 points. He was arguably our best player. He got game 1 and game 4, the 2 wins we got. Mind you, without Kawhi Leonard, he was very good. So I'm not saying that he's going to, at this age, turn some corner in the playoffs, but a healthy Kawhi and James Harden could win a series or two in the West, given their role players being good. And I really think our role players are good.
All right. Who's got a better team this upcoming season? Who's got the brighter future? That question being answered on this Locked On crossover, Clippers and Warriors.
I got to tell you a little something about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including our home state of California. And I'm hoping that most of the listeners, I mean, you could be coming from around the world, but Warriors, Clippers, and most of them are in California and Texas and Georgia as well. You can also get in on the action with Prize Picks with those states. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks, your picks are still live. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNBA on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Back to it, Warriors and Clippers. Who's going to be better this upcoming season? Clippers, a playoff team a season ago, went down in the first round. Warriors, a play-in team, went down in game 1 to the Sacramento Kings. They missed out on the playoffs. Both teams have something in common, losing a aging star. Warriors losing Klay Thompson. Clippers losing, as we mentioned, Paul George. Who's going to be better this upcoming season?
You're asking me? I mean, look,
I'm asking you.
Yeah, I'm not the type of guy that is always just going to ride with my team no matter what, but I'm really not high on the Warriors this season. I can't lie. I'm not. I love Kyle Anderson. I truly love him. He's actually my second favorite college player of all time because my parents with UCLA, he was a beast. And I think he's going to be great in terms of just adding another wing that can defend. And I mean, the dribble handoff stuff with Steph and Kyle, I think that'll be really intriguing because I just think Kyle's the kind of guy that can thrive in a high IQ situation because he will add to your team's collective IQ. He's not a great shooter, as everybody knows, but he's got incredible hands. And I think with the movement of the Warriors, I don't know how he fits next to Draymond, but I think with the movement of the Warriors, I think Steph will make his life a lot easier, actually. So I'm loving that move. I think Buddy Hield will be good, but I don't think that those additions really move the needle for me. You lose Klay Thompson. I know Klay had his flaws. He's not the same defender he once was, and he can be hot and cold with the shot. But overall, the gravity of Klay Thompson and how much he meant to the Warriors offense is relevant. And I think that's going to be missed. I think you're really banking on, and Steph and Draymond are 1 year older. Looney looked not the same last year. Wiggins is the big question mark for me. And then can he return to being very consistent, very solid? And then the development of Moody, Kuminga, and Pods. I think that, and Trace Jackson Davis as well. Those guys taking a leap, that could prove me wrong. But as of now, I just think the Clippers, if it's the big if, right? That's the thing. Kawhi and Harden, can they play 60 plus games? If Kawhi plays under 60 games, then yeah, the Warriors will probably be better. But it's not like the Warriors haven't had health concerns. I mean, Steph, I feel like misses 15 games, has been missing 15 games quite regularly the last couple of years. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of it's load management in today's day and age. He's getting his rest that way.
We know about load management over here.
We all do. I'm looking at the Clippers roster right now. In terms of a player that can potentially pop, because here's my argument. I would say that like heading into the season on paper, Clippers are better than the Warriors, right? I think the Warriors are in a better position to go out there, get someone at the deadline that makes them significantly better, that they have team control over for multiple years. And then I would say the Warriors have a higher ceiling that way. Because I don't think either with the rosters constructed right now is winning an NBA championship. Am I wrong saying that?
100% right.
Yeah.
I also, by the way, just to correct myself, Steph Curry only missed 8 games last year, so credit to him. That's amazing. I was thinking of the 2 previous years where he missed 26 games and 18 games. So, again, I think we have the same kind of concerns, though. Obviously, much higher concerns with the Clippers and Kawhi. But, like, for example, I think the Clippers, just because of the simple fact that James Harden is a great offensive engine still, especially in the regular season, if Kawhi goes down, we still have James Harden to create stuff. If Steph Curry goes down for any amount of games, I really don't know how the Warriors are going to survive. It's going to be a lot of pods handling the ball, a lot of point forward Kuminga, but that sounds like a young team that's like getting reps, but is like below the play-in type of deal. So I think we're more equipped for a star to miss games. There's also the Kevin Porter Jr. factor with the Clippers. That's a big unknown. It's like, how much could he bring to the table? But as I said, I'm not very high on the Warriors. I'm not as high on the Clippers as some of the Clipper fans, but I think we'll be better than a lot of people think because the defensive personnel that the Clippers have acquired is pretty good. Derrick Jones Jr. and Nicholas Batum and Chris Dunn to throw with Ivica Zubac, Kawhi Leonard, and Terrence Mann. I think we got a really solid point of attack defense, whereas the Warriors, it's got to be a big season from Wiggins for me. Otherwise, your defense is just Draymond at the end of the day to me. And then, I mean, how do you feel about your other defenders? Moody, Kuminga, Paz, these guys. Paz is a great charge taker.
Not great. I mean, they got one thing that the Warriors have is legit 12 dudes fighting for spots, right? And Kerr said it at the media availability yesterday. Basically, just like every starting spot is up for grabs. Yeah, I think Steph's going to start, is what he said. I think Steph's going to start, but I'm telling these guys like starting positions are up for grabs. Now, how many? He may have 3 already sharpied in there. We have no idea because the consensus is that Pod's probably going to be your starting 2, and that Draymond is going to be in there with Curry. But aside from that, like, are they going to go Trace Jackson Davis at the 5? Could Kevon Looney sneak back in there? I think a lot of Warriors fans were expecting Kevon Looney to maybe not be a part of the team just 3-4 months ago. He's back. Wiggins is back. Guys that, Peyton, that we thought may be involved in some sort of a trade this summer, just because when you look at the Warriors roster, it doesn't seem balanced in a lot of ways. But because of that, it makes them very versatile in terms of the way that they can play. So I look at the Warriors defensively right now and think that, Kerr is going to start running rotations out there that defend, that can get stops. They were anemic in transition defense last year. They're going to have to be better in that. And then I think in just every facet of defensive ceiling, Kyle Anderson helps you out, right?
Yeah,
his IQ and the way that he can kind of be a quarterback of a defense along with Draymond, I think that helps them out tremendously. So I don't know. I think it's hard to look at the Warriors right now and say what their ceiling could be this season because of the potential for trade and their desire to go out there and get another star for Steph Curry. I will say their floor is a decent basketball team, right? And if you want to talk about Steph Curry potentially getting injured, it's a not good basketball team at all.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Is I'm expecting there to be some injuries on both sides for both teams. I just think the Clippers are a little bit more equipped to handle it with having 2 solidified stars. I really think James Harden will be, because you have to think, last year he averaged 16 points, shot 11 times a game. Now you're removing Paul George and Westbrook from that. So you're going to see his shot attempts go up a little bit. I think he could easily average like 18, 19 points, 9, 10 assists type of deal, because his passing isn't declined. It's really just, he doesn't create the same advantages he once did. But Harden's better than people realize he is. And you know what? He had some really good games against the Warriors last season. I think he had a triple-double against you guys at a game I went to at home. My thing is this with the Warriors. Have you addressed the fact that there were no 7-footers on the roster last season?
I mean, getting a second-round pick in Quentin Post, it's now a 2-way player that stretches the floor and shoots threes more than he does bang in the paint. But hey, he was pretty physical at Boston College, but I don't think they're expecting him to be the plug there. I think it's hopefully Kevon Looney has a better season. He can see the floor more because he's trying to stretch the floor now, shooting 3-pointers.
Kevon Looney, he's going back to shooting the ball like he did at UCLA?
Yeah, man. That's been his entire goal this offseason. And when Kevon says he's going to do something, like play an entire season injury-free and start every single game, Iron Man does it. So when he says he's going to shoot the 3 ball at a high clip, until I see otherwise, I'm banking on it. But I mean, if he could do that and defend the way that he does, and all of a sudden you have a lineup with, Curry and Wiggins and Kuminga and Draymond and Looney in there, I mean, that's a crazy long lineup that, goes back to me talking about how creative and versatile they can get with the lineups this season. But aside from, Looney and Quentin Post, it's Draymond Green playing some 5. Could Anderson play some 5? Aside from that, yeah, there's no one, man.
Yeah, Draymond.
And Trace, obviously, too, who's undersized, but he plays bigger with his vertical threat.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is Draymond, that's another thing, right? I think the Warriors' defense is drastically worse without him. He needs to control his emotions this season. With the constant suspensions last year, it was crazy. Like, it's no secret what kind of impact Draymond makes that goes beyond the stat sheet defensively. I mean, just could you imagine if the Warriors had like Zubats though? Like it would be huge to have someone like that out with.
That's what I was getting into, man, before my brain just exploded and I had no idea what I was talking about and went back with more Kawhi Leonard talk. But I was saying, like, is there any chance that there could be a trade partnership to where if the Clippers were out of it and wanted to give up a piece like that, it's like, hey, you guys want, you know, Moses Moody, or hey, you want a draft pick? We'll throw you a first round pick for Zubat, So that's what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah, I think Zubats could maybe bring you a lot of similar things that Andrew Bogut did. I just don't think he's as skilled as Andrew Bogut in terms of like the passing and stuff, but he could block shots, he could rebound, he's got great touch around the basket. The Warriors offense might be a little fast for him, but I think Zoo's really good. I think he'd be able to fit in a team like that. I just don't think the Clippers would trade Zoo, especially after just re-signing him, because even if the Clippers went a different direction and pivoted, I think Zoo would be a good, solid guy
Still
to
a
have
part of it, yeah.
Yeah, for a rebuild, just like because he's approaching his prime. Like, unless you're giving us a player that we think is better than Zoo, I don't think just one first-round pick for a prime Zoo, because he's 27, he's going to be 28 by the start of the season, or he might already have turned 28. Just giving up prime Zoo after you paid him is very unlikely. I think the Clippers have a lot more. I think the Warriors have a lot more players that Clipper fans would want than vice versa. There's not too many players in the Clippers you would want. Honestly, I think Terrence Mann could fit into any team. I think that the Warriors would love him, and he would fit in so well with the Warriors. The movement, offense, and all that, the motion. But he just got re-signed as well. So I don't think anything's going to happen between our teams this season. But at this point, I'm just enjoying the Steph Curry ride because I know it won't last forever, and I'm a fan of the game. And Steph is an incredible player. And Steve Kerr went to my high school, so I always support him.
Oh, hell yeah. Looking forward to seeing some of the battles that these guys have. I mean, it could be a play-in battle,
Yeah, very likely. Very likely.
Could be a play-in battle. So we could get some meaningful basketball in April for sure. All right, Darian Viziri, Charlie Walter, Locked On Warriors, subscribe. Locked On Clippers, subscribe. This has been the Locked On Crossover Podcast. Peace, everyone. NBA season right around the corner.